Welcome. Today, Lauren, Christine, and I are going to be talking about Sun Transit 7 and 4. Uh, Before we get started, though, I thought we'd just do a little review of this Gate 33 that we're coming out of and see what's been happening. So, any thoughts?
Well, I'm wondering, you guys always have more interesting reflections, and this is actually the reflection energy, right? This gate 33 that we're just finishing up today as we record is this energy to pull back and review and to really kind of think about what to make of things and what to bring forward and what to let go. And it also happens to be the end of the eighth of the wheel with a trigram. The lower trigram was mountain energy, which is this keeping still energy. So it is kind of a culminating, 33 is kind of this culminating energy that I'm curious if that showed up for either of you.
It's been a lot of retrospection on my part over this last period of time. Um, Sort of like they like look forward a little bit and then, oh, we're gonna go back, and then sort of like trace where that came from and how I got here, and and sort of like where are the places I misstepped
Mm.
along the way. Um, and like where was I trusting and where was I actually trying to actually, you know, I hate to use the word manipulate, but it's the word that came, so we'll stay with it.
Hmm. Well, I really love this gate. I could stay in retreat for quite some time, particularly in the period that we're in right now. I'd like to have gate 33 show up like Mercury in retrograde. Why not? It's a little bit of that. I think it has a lot of that same energy. And for me, I was coming off of a big family gathering of a lot of intensity, intense emotions, intense energy required. And then as we moved into 33, everyone left. And so the natural thing you do is, well, how did things go? And could we have done something different? And I found myself coming back unusually for me to conversations and kind of rewinding them and scenes and like, oh, maybe it could have been like this, or maybe I saw it this way, but it could have been that way. So it was definitely quite an opportunity for reflection. And then as it moved towards the end of this period, I'm feeling this sense of more on a bigger scale, like how I'm seeing things in the world and how in our conversation just pre-recording was it reflective of that, how things are going and where they might go. Also, just taking another stab at what that might look like.
Interesting. Didn't know, and I never do until I hear you two and I can respond. But I actually was traveling. I had gone back to Texas very briefly for my mother-in-law's 90th birthday party, which was lovely. And then I was traveling, flying back here to Maine on Tuesday, which was the pivot point between Gate 31 and Gate 33, this reflection energy. And so it was interesting with 31 being kind of about leadership and how we are, showing up in the world as our full self, how we're sharing that with the collective. Really did for me push right up against this whole like, wait, I need to think about what it is I want in the world, what it is is meaningful to me, like what I need to bring forward. And so I was on the plane, and as I was traveling through these airports, which are just crazily filled with crazy energy, it was interesting to me. I didn't feel part of that energy at all, right? I really had this kind of retreat sense about me, like I was there, I was witnessing it. I could see the beauty actually. It was like a murmuration of birds, right? That's what an airport is like when you're not feeling caught up in it, when you're just watching it. And it was just really lovely from that perspective. I was like, huh, interesting. And so I didn't really put that all together until just now, but this ability to be among the world and the living, and also to be in some way disengaged from it was really, I think it's really important energy to try to find for us ourselves, right? Because we live in a world that just feels so on top of us all the time that this, finding this peace and retreat within ourselves, even amidst all of the things, I think that's obviously what meditation practice has been teaching forever, right? Like, how do you live in a crazy world and not be crazy yourself? So it was just interesting that it happened right at that pivot point for me.
Yeah, because it's so easy for people to get caught up in the energy. We've had this thing they call Taste of the City just down the block from us. And it's like the energy needs to keep ramping up and ramping up and ramping up. And I walk by it and I go like, you couldn't pay me to go in there. But it's clear that people get very caught in that, and it's become normal. Yeah. And when you think it's normal, it doesn't occur to you to step back and go, oh, could I look at that differently?
I see this transition going into gate 7 as from the gate of retreat, as like when you pull over on the side of the road and you look at the map again and you go, wait a minute, am I going the right way? Where am I going? So I've taken that pause and then I can set out. Back in the day where we use real maps, but they're becoming more helpful now that the internet is failing us more. So this opportunity to kind of pause and then get clear about where we want to be.
Yeah, no, that's totally true. I think that when we look at gate 7, right, again, 33 ended a cycle of mountain keeping still. We enter into a period until the fall equinox of water, the abysmal, which, we don't like the word abysmal in our language, but it actually is more in the I Ching, it's more about depth. And it's also, in the energy is very much about flow, right? About being adaptable, just like water is, right? It creeps in everywhere. It can take the shape of whatever container it's in, right? It's adaptable. And so I think about that idea for us over the next, few weeks until the fall equinox. And starting out with this gate 7, this gate of the role of the self, right? It lives in our identity center. It is a powerful, all the gates in our identity center are, they're basically starting energies of each of these 8 sections of the wheel, right? So each time we open up a new lower trigram, we start with a gate that is in our identity center, is in our higher self space. So this gate 7 is one of those gates, and this role of the self, this understanding of who we are in the world, our truest, self, and trying on some of these various roles, right? We're all doing that all the time. Like, am I a mom? Am I a wife? Am I like we have so many roles that we play in the modern world. And this gate 7 is this energy to know and to have a sense of whether that role is correct for us or not. And we don't know until we've run the experiment, right? We sometimes have to try the thing for a while sometimes. And so the other aspect of this that dovetailed into something you were saying, Lauren, is this idea that the hexagram name is the army, which I always have taken as is such an odd term for me. But you made reference to something that made me think about this marching forth, right? When I think of an army, what I think of are these rows of humans marching forth into something, into some unknown. And that is kind of what this energy is like, right? It's like I am moving forward. I've had this period of retreat. I've had this period of keeping still. I'm now moving into this more fluid, flowing time. I have to make decisions and try things out about who I am in the world and how I can share my true self with the collective.
Related to that, I've been thinking about how that relates to us as individuals, like in this with the army, is like there's a leadership component to that. And the how do you lead is so significant. And as individuals, how do we lead ourselves? Because there's a place where we're growing up where we become like we almost have to become our own parents. So now we're leading ourselves. And then this sort of recognizing that I was just thinking back for myself, it's like that recognizing that I thought that all the adults around me had everything all together. And then the big shock that no, they don't. But now saying like to younger people, nobody's got it all together. Nobody absolutely knows. All we can do is pay attention to things and lead ourselves forward. But I've also been contemplating with this one on how much pressure there is in our world to stay who people think you are, and how difficult it is to go, oh, actually, this is me showing up now. And then, but then you get all this pushback. So like, then how do you lead yourself out of that? And so much of that has, like, where are you giving your power away?
Well, in all the questions that Hilary Barrett puts forth with Hexagram 7, my favorite is, with all your efforts, are you creating the life you want? And Lois, I think that takes it right back to that, coming back to center. And is this who you aspire to be? And that's your work, Lois, in developmental coaching, right? It's right up that alley of who is it you aspire to be and what's getting in your way, right?
Yeah. And the importance of like being able to listen to ourselves, but sometimes it takes somebody else listening to us. And like Christine and I both feel that strongly, is in that because we're responsive. And then when we're talking and we start hearing ourselves. And so if you've got somebody that will just listen and not judge and let you, because sometimes you hear, oh, that's really cool about me. And sometimes you go, oh my God, I do that. But but you get to see. And it's lovely and it's gentle.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's why conversation is so important, right? And this is a place that we've really fallen away from in very recent times, right? This just chatting with one another. Because as everything you said is true, Lois, but it's also true that that is where we hear our own frequency, right? And we think about it as like that's where we hear our own thoughts, that's what we can kind of hear what we think about the world, but it is more than just our thoughts, right? It's literally our energy, right? We can hear our energy. Others can hear our energy. And so again, like in this gate 7 time, like this gate 7 is associated with the direction of the future, right? All of the gates in our identity are about direction, right? Love and direction. And this is specifically about the future. And we feel that, right? This is all we've been talking about in this space. Like there's this energy that's just asking us to pay attention to the future, right? To start building the future now, right? And so, in order to do that, this gate also brings this energy of establishing new order or destroying old ones, right? And so I think another thing that we're going to be really faced with in definitely in the next few days until the 10th, I think we're in gate 7. But again, this is a beginning energy for this whole time period. It's like paying attention to things that we don't need anymore. But even more, we've got to build the new ones, right? And that requires leadership. That requires us to know our own mind. That requires us to talk. I don't know that we can know our own mind very well when we are not in conversation with others.
And then flipping that around on the other side is in the listening to each other. There's so much judgment in our world right now. I mean, you look at parenting for just a particular topic, and there's polarized ideas about what's right and what's wrong. There's people that could just listen to each other, and not say, no, you're doing it wrong. It would be really helpful. Everybody could grow from that.
Well, and I see it going even a step further, Lois. It's listening to ourselves rather than dogma that has told us, because I think it's dogma that has led us into this polarity. And if we can let go of that and come back to our own beliefs, which I think this is part of the work the three of us have been on. And I was really touched by you were saying this about conversation, Christine, because that's what we show up with each other every 5 days or so. And we do, or no, excuse me, 14 days, and we do a recording. And in this rapidly changing world that we're living in, it brings us back to a focus point that we share with others as well. But in that, we're listening to each other and we're also hearing ourselves. And I don't know about you two, but I'm pretty sure this would be true that when you get off these calls, you're a lot more clear about how you're feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and all of this dovetails directly into what the gene keys tell us about this energy too, right? Like we're in the shadow of discord, right? We've been in this shadow for a long time as a nation and as a world. But the way to empathy is through discernment, right? And Lois, you just talked about that, right? Like this ability, we have to be able to understand and discern but within ourselves and within others, and allow space for all of us to not know, right? To maybe be wrong, right? And have less judgment around all of that, because we have been conditioned to believe that there was a right way to do life, and there could be nothing further from the truth, right? There's literally 8 billion ways to do life, and they're all correct when you're doing it for yourself, by yourself, to your, we would say in human design, living your design, right? And this is the piece that we're learning right now. Like so many of us haven't been living our design. We're not living what's true to us, right? We're living out of a conditioned idea of who we should be, how we should show up. And I think of this army energy as like, you know what? Like we're marching into the future. Do we want to keep marching into this future that was made for us by somebody else from hundreds of years ago? Or do we want to create a new future that actually fits and feels better for more people? I want the new future with better, closeness to our own true selves.
And when you also made a comment about like making mistakes, and when you said that, I was thinking about all of the amazing things that have happened in the world because somebody made a mistake. You know, so, like the things we wouldn't have if there hadn't
Post-it
been.
notes.
I'm even thinking about years ago. My husband hated Brussels sprouts. I was like, oh no, and I love them. And one day I accidentally almost burned them. He went, oh hey, these are good.
Best mistakes. Cool. Well, as I'm listening to both of you and in my preparation, I was toying with two different Gemmos, and I actually think I want to share both of them because we know we all show up at this gate in different places. And I would say this, if what Lois, Christine, and I are talking about resonates deeply with you and you're ready for liftoff, and you're like, yes, that's what I want, I'm ready, then Rosemary is your support for this week. And Rosemary will help you focus and create a sense of calm as you are moving through this gate of division and guidance and virtue. And if what we're talking about feels blurry, if you feel like, yeah, that's great, but I'm exhausted, and I just can't pull myself along any further, then try silver birch seed. Silver birch seed is literally food for the brain. And my sense is this exhaustion is coming from overload from all the sensory information you're taking in. So I would recommend silver birch seed, turn off your television or your YouTube feed or whatever that is that's keeping you overloaded, and see if you can spend these 5.5 days nurturing yourself and your brain.
And to complement that, I think just like Richard Rudd's favorite practice, contemplation, showed up. It's just take some time to pay attention to what's going on for yourself, your whole self, not just the thoughts, because they could get you in trouble.
Yeah, I'd also say exactly as you're contemplating, I would also think about the word influence, right? This is a big energy in this gate, and think about where you have influence, right? Because a lot of us, we have a lot of influence in ways that we often aren't even paying attention to, right? And noticing that, I think, can really help us discern just this energy, where to be placing our energy, right? Because it is so hard to know because there's so much need and so many demands on our energy and our time. And not all of it is very impactful, right? And so this idea of thinking about where we have influence and how we might be influencing others into this different future that we're building, I think could be very just very powerful to recognize within yourself where it is that you are making an impact.
The word empowering came up when you said that. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what these identity, the identity center energies are, right? It's very much about empowerment. Um, and this in particular is about the point between the individual and the collective, right? Where are you being empowered and influential in the wider world? And that requires you to honestly feel that inside of yourself first, right? And notice it first there. Um, and as we shift from this gate 7 on the 10th, 11th of August, then we move into gate 4, which is the gate of formalization, is the name in human design. And in the I Ching, it's youthful folly. So, as we are, marching forward, figuring out ourselves a little bit better, discerning what's for us and what is not in this gate 7, we move into this gate 4, which is out of our identity center and into our ajna, which is the part of our design that we think of as our mind, right? This energy of this is a logical energy. It's also another collective energy. It's trying to figure out, what you know and who you are within this wider collective. And there's a lot of logical energy here. You want to figure things out, right? You want to create a formula for things, right? And so I think about this formalization. I'm not sure exactly what human design is saying about it, but I hear formula. And when I hear formula, I think a bit of rigidity and a bit of staticness, right? And it's not to say that formulas can't be useful, they can be great guidance. Obviously, mathematically, they're very important, but this is a trick of the ajna, which is certainty, right? Being certain about everything or something. And that feels really good to our body, right? We've been conditioned to really want certainty in the world, right? Like if, whatever, you go to school, you go to college, you get a job, you get the house, right? Like that path of certainty that we've built into our structures feels good, right? Like it feels like you just do the things and the other things that you want show up. But that's a formula, and it isn't a formula that works for very many people, actually. And we've noticed this, right? We're noticing this. And so I think about, as we're in this gate 4, to really paying attention to where we have been formulaically living life, paying not as much mind to what isn't working, and just doing the thing because that's the formula, right? And so this might be a really good time to just notice what we've been doing that we've been told to be doing, but yet it isn't actually giving us the results that are making us feel the way we'd like to feel.
I think too, paying attention to the assumptions we've made about how this formula is going to work, because like there's so many places in people's lives where there's evidence that it's not working. It's like people assuming that they've got like job security or different things like that. And and recognizing that these levels of security are sometimes they're a bit of a facade, and that there is no absolute certainty in the world about anything. So being able to come to terms with trying to have some relative stability in your life, but recognizing it's going to be a roller coaster no matter how hard you try.
I think the thing that I like about what I'm hearing from both of you is this is really about experimenting and through our experiences. And so, taking a look at everything we've been doing and all that rigidity you spoke of, Christine, of how we do things, and flip it back and say, okay, these were experiments. Did they succeed or not? Should I continue doing it this way or not? And the question from Hilary Barrett's translation is, what don't you know? And I think, wouldn't that be a great question to contemplate each morning when you wake up? What don't I know today? Because the truth is, we don't know anything, right? We don't know if the kettle's going to work when we go to make our tea. We don't know that we're going to wake up. We don't know. We do know the sun will rise. I think I feel pretty certain in the sun and its transits. But other than that, we don't know. And as we go through that inventory, I think it brings with it some humility. And we could certainly use more of that in the world.
Yeah, no, it's so true. And I think, again, in the gene keys, the shadow state of this is reaction, right? And I think we've talked quite a bit about reaction here in this space because, again, reaction is not a response, right? And most humans on the planet are generator types. They are here to respond, right? A response is a moment of pause between the thing that happens and our response to it, right? As opposed to a reaction, which is no moment of pause. It's just immediate, right? Something happens, the kettle doesn't work, and we're like, what? Right? So I love that idea of like, as you're trying to be not in reaction, maybe that question is, what don't I know? Right? Like, what don't I know in this moment that would matter to me and help me understand why this is happening, right? And what I can learn from it. And so, the city, the highest expression of this whole process here in Gate 4 is, turning through revolution into rebirth, right? And I can't think of any energy that seems more, I don't know, aligned essentially with what I feel like we're doing as a collective on this planet right now, right? We are in reaction. We have been in reaction for a long time. I myself can definitely feel this burgeoning revolutionary energy from so many people, right? There's like, okay, this experiment, it's run its course. We have got to build a new experiment. And then I know what's on the other side of it is this rebirth, right? And so this is going to be just a short little 5-day window for us to maybe walk through a cycle like that in our own experience.
Christine, as you were saying, I just want to share this, and I'll give you the link to put in the show notes. But there's an intuitive that I follow that's Dutch, and I've shared her information with you before, Christine. But she recently did a short clip on the exhaustion we're feeling right now, and so of course, being in generations of reaction, we're all exhausted. Everyone could say that. But the more I find I can catch and respond, that exhaustion lives in me. And her talk was about that it's through the exhaustion that we're actually being reprogrammed and changing and becoming our new self. So I'll give you that clip and we can share that with others.
Well, you think about that, sometimes exhaustion is that thing that takes you down, and then your body is like, if you're not paying attention, you get sick and you just have to stop. And in that stop, you get to look at things a little bit differently and sometimes see that you've been running around like a crazy person and not really getting anywhere. And maybe you don't need to be doing some of those things that you did. But one of the other things that really came up around this gene key when I was looking at it was I was thinking around logic and how we're all we try to be so logical. And if I think this through, it'll come to a natural place and it all runs out. And then I was thinking about years ago when I read Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, and that logic took Robert Pirsig down a horrible rabbit hole of almost insanity, because the logic in the end undoes itself. And so recognizing that we really can't logic our way out of everything. And so that we need to sort of surrender to that things just happen. And it's not an easy place to go, but I think it's really liberating.
Yeah, absolutely, Lois. And I think it also actually tempers the exhaustion, right? I think a lot of our exhaustion comes from our mental energy, needing answers, needing this logical path, needing to understand what's coming at us, needing certainty, right? Like there's so much energy that gets tied up in that space. And I see it all around me. And I see it in myself as I have tried very hard to bring practices into my life that keep that chatter of the mental mind, the monkey mind, down, right? Because it does. I know it does. I mean, we know it does. Everybody that's ever taught, read anything about people who are practicing a meditative lifestyle in some form or fashion, there is no report that it doesn't help, right? That it doesn't bring less less exhaustion, because it does, right? Because it is exhausting for our brain. Our brain is a huge energy sink, right? We know this. And so using our brain in ways like what we're doing right here, this is how we're supposed to be using our brains as outer authorities for others, right? We're just offering up whatever it is that's coming to us, that's meaningful to us, in hopes that maybe somebody else brings that energy in and finds it useful for themselves in some way, right? But our brain is not very useful for us as a decision maker internally, right? It doesn't really offer us much. In fact, mostly what it offers us is exhaustion, is uncertainty, and is reaction. Which I have to correct myself. When I was saying that the gene keys reaction, revolution, rebirth is gate 4, that is untrue. That's actually gate 49, which is the polarity earth gate in this time. So it is still a very powerful energy for us. It's just the opposite end of this wheel. And it is also complementary when I tell you the actual gene keys for 4, which is intolerance, which is the shadow. Understanding is the way, is the gift, and forgiveness is the highest expression, right? And so it's very easy to see the connection between these two energies, this reaction bringing intolerance, right? This revolution needing, an understanding in order to make a revolution. And then, forgiveness is rebirth, right? We all know this. We've all forgiven something or somebody somewhere and recognized, oh my God, like what was I doing holding on to that energy? Right? Well, it does feel like a rebirth.
And forgiving ourselves.
Yeah.
I think that's the greatest opportunity here in this period, is to give ourselves that we're not going to know, let ourselves off the hook. And Christine, this overactive brain and the exhaustion from it and such, I think the Gemmo that I'd really like to see folks try on for this stretches almond. And so what almond is capable of doing, and why I think it's useful here, is one, almond lights the path. And that's what we're looking for, is some illumination for an enlightenment in which way we go. But the other thing that's really beautiful about almond is it helps us be gentler with ourselves. And so we're coming into this and then realizing, oh my God, I really haven't been doing things right, or I don't know how to do things. And it could turn into some harshness. And I think almond would be lovely in smoothing those edges.
You know, that's interesting because it points to something to me is that there's an individual and there's a communal aspect to this particular sun transit. And there's like in that, if I get more gentle with myself, I will then be more gentle with the people around me. But it sort of took me around to a practice that it came up for me when I was looking at this. In it, the is the things that irritate us. And I have a friend that refers to them as allergies. I have allergies to this or allergies to that. And she went, this is an extreme example, but she's very, very anti-gun. She remarried years ago and her husband has guns. And so she realized that she had this allergy and she went out and she actually learned how to use a firearm. She doesn't, I mean, she didn't really want a gun still, but she dealt with the significant irritation, aggravation that comes up. So, I mean, there's all things like, I mean, there's all kinds of things that bug us in the world. So it's like, get to know it a little bit better and just see if you can make friends with it rather than be aggravated, which is a little bit like working with the Gemmos is when an aggravation shows up, right? It's telling you something. And what do you need to do with it?
Yeah, I love that, Lois. And I think too, like when Lauren was talking, this idea of enlightenment, like I had never, when she said it, I was like, oh my God, it's like enlightenment, like enlightening your load. Like I've never really thought of it. I always thought of it as this luminary, like seeing more light, being more visionary, all of that. But like, oh, that really is the part that we've kind of been talking about is just like lightening this heavy load, right? Like not letting this chatter so much in our brain control us, not paying as much attention to it, not sticking in these places that are heavy, right? Because again, we have only so much control in the world, right? And this idea that we, just thinking through something or brute forcing something is going to somehow like get us through. It's like, no, it doesn't. That's what enlightenment is, which is you don't have much control, right? You have to be in the moment and be okay with whatever that moment is and ask what it is here to show me.
And be responsive. Yeah. Wow. That conversation went in amazing ways today. It's like, so I think we're feeling complete again. So thank you for being with us, and we hope we'll see you next time.